everyone, and welcome to the GMIHub Online. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight's going to be an interesting conversation as we talk about musicality tonight, and we're talking about contrast. And there's so many different ways you can do contrast, and we're going to open that up and unpack it a bit more, whether that be instrumentation, vocalization, sound, instrument. Anyway, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a great conversation. And also wants to let you know that the GMI Hub has a website. We want you to go visit gmihub.ca. And when you check that out, and if you're here on YouTube and you're having a chance and you're just hit the notification bell, click the subscribe if you haven't done already, and then go to gmihub.ca. You can also do that. Visit there and you can find out more about what's happening with the GMI Hub. Great things are happening, lots of stuff, and we're really excited about what's up and coming, and especially when we're unfolding this Christmas project, which is coming up. It's Family Christmas Volume 2, which is coming your way. It's going to be smashing. So anyway, let me just introduce myself. My name is Dale Borland.
And I'm Cheryl Dewick. I'm so glad that you all are here to join us. And I'm also so glad that we have Joel Parisien with us. You may remember Joel from NewWorldSon, which I don't know if that's an active band anymore, but Joel is the lead singer of NewWorldSon, but he's also a singer, a songwriter, a producer, and we're just absolutely thrilled that he's able to join us. So thank you so much, Joel, for being here.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
My pleasure. First, so hopefully many.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, one of the things that we want to cover today, now many of you are songwriters, many of you have songs, and if you're like me, and I'm part of this group too, have songs, and we only get so far with them, and we just don't know what to do next. We don't know how to build interest in the song, and how to, or maybe how to get that hook, or how to determine what the chorus is. Well, the whole point of this session today is to talk about how to build contrast. And there are so many ways to build contrast. And I know that we can cover a lot, but and if we don't get through it all, there's going to be more opportunities where we can talk about this, because it's a very interesting topic to think about contrast. Have you ever thought about the different ways you can build interest in your song? Well, that's what this conversation is about. And hopefully we'll have another surprise guest joining us in a little bit. But for now, let's talk contrast. So building interest in a song. So I want to go back in time here. Joel, NewWorldSon. Let's go back to your NewWorldSon days. When you were writing songs for NewWorldSon, what were some of the techniques that you kind of were using to kind of get everyone jumping, and get it? Because you were very successful. You traveled all over the world with the music. So what were some of the techniques you did with your music to get people interested?
Well, primarily try everything out live.
Okay.
Now, not all of us have that opportunity to take music that we've created and have an audience to kind of use as a sounding board. We did. When we started as a group, we were very much a live group, which meant was we were playing every week and trying out material in front of an audience. So this is one of the things that really helped me personally cut my teeth as a songwriter, because you got the feedback right away. You learned right away what wasn't working. And it's important, I think, as a songwriter, as much as a performer, even if you're as a songwriter, you don't have the benefit of being able to bounce songs off of a group of people to see how a group of people responds. I still think it's really important for songwriters rather, to be humble enough to kind of get people's feedback. And not necessarily the feedback that's going to come from, your loved ones who are probably going to tell you everything you do is great. Well, let's be honest about it. But so I know that this is kind of a broad answer to your question, but we were really learning what was working for a room full of people because we were constantly playing all the time. And I can promise you, as a songwriter, we would shelve songs. I mean, we were never too precious to kind of go, you know what, that one kind of went over like a lead balloon. It just didn't work. People didn't get it. And so one of the things I discovered from performing in front of people is that When you're talking about being, on stage, you're performing for a room full of people, these things are happening in 3 dimensions. There are so many things that can grab people's attention. There are so many things that can kind of draw people away from the center focus of what you're doing. And so building contrasts in a song was one of the ways that we as a group would kind of keep the audience engaged with our story, because you don't want to just depend on the volume, the lights, the environment. You're still telling a story. And so what I found that it was, as a group, as when I felt like we were starting to kind of lose the crowd, I would automatically tell the band to be quiet. And so doing this thing with dynamics, volume, always worked. It always kind of snapped people's attention back to center stage again if they were starting to kind of lose focus. And it was, so rather than going after people and trying to kind of turn up and play more and hit harder, the trick that I found worked more consistently was to retreat a little bit. So the same thing would happen in terms of how fast I was changing chords, how loud I was singing into the microphone. So these sort of physical tricks would find their way into the writing room the following week. And we would reverse engineer parts of songs based on, you remember that moment in that song where we did less and we all of a sudden got everybody's attention again? So from a band perspective, we use that live feedback a lot in terms of creating dynamics in our music. And the one main thing we did all the time was turn the volume down before we turned it back up.
Wow, that's kind of cool. That is so cool. Well, we have another surprise guest who has joined us. Just gonna do grid here. Disappeared on me.
Right. Before we leave Joel's point, he was talking about creating dynamics. You had an amazing opportunity to practice or try out these different chord progressions, quiet times, dynamics, and that gave you a good opportunity to get a response right off the bat. So what about an artist who doesn't have that opportunity? What would you recommend to them who doesn't have that platform?
Well, I would have two answers. One, make sure that you are trying songs in front of people. Make sure you're playing some of your ideas in front of people. Because ultimately, I know that it takes a lot of courage. And even if it means having somebody else play along with you to help you get feedback from people and ask them to give you positive feedback, because most people face to face are very reluctant to kind of critique what you're doing. But you can kind of get them to help give you constructive criticism by asking them, okay, what do you think are the strongest parts of my song? Right. And you can kind of learn, oh, well, I really like when you sing this part, or I really like when it comes to this moment, or what's the part that you do over and over again that I feel like I can sing along with? Oh, the chorus. I really like that. And sometimes by virtue of what they're not saying, you can learn what parts of your song maybe you're struggling because they're not getting that positive feedback. So that would be my one answer. My second answer would be learn from what we learned from playing in front of people. Creating dynamics in the music, in which, is really important so that you set up moments in your song that are exciting. I don't necessarily mean physical volume, but I mean the amount of text you're putting into a line, the amount of number of times you're changing chords. Like, make sure that you always have this negative space, and we'll probably talk about that through this whole kind of clinic, different ways of creating sort of negative space, so that when you lean forward, there's this perceived increase in dynamics by a lot of different measurements, and that was what we were learning live in front of people, was to learn how to kind of create dynamics. Because I feel like if you go on the attack all the time, if you use the same type of phrasing all the time, if you're constantly changing, you're constantly trying to get people's attention, I feel like you lose people that barely make it to the end of your song.
And when you talk dynamics, it sounds like you went through dynamics as in it could have been instrumental, it could be lyrically, it could be like so I want to unpack that a little bit more. That'd be awesome to do that. I want to bring Tom Golly in the mix here too. Tom, I hope everyone can see you. Hi, Tom. I hope you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. You guys can hear me all right, I hope.
Yes, we can. Welcome, Tom. I'm so glad you're able to join us. Tom, for those of you who may remember, Tom has been on GMIHub Online before and has always been a great mentor. And so we really wanted him to come back again. And he is a Christian singer, songwriter from Nashville, and he gets a lot of traction with his music. And uh, his songs have a way of grabbing people's attention, and they get a lot of airplay on radio, on Spotify, you can just hear him. He's on YouTube, everywhere. And so I really wanted to get Tom in here because I also wanted to find out from Tom some of the tricks that you use in your songs to get people, like what do you do to get people to I don't know, jump on your songs? You know, what are some of the tricks you've used?
I mean, so here's the truth. The truth is I'm a wizard, and I have the ability to open portals into other dimensions and pull out songs.
Oh boy, here we go.
But in all seriousness, for me, it's I have just an interesting process, and I think most people, everyone's process is different, you know. And what I'm not going to do is sit here and talk to you about this, you know, scientific formula that I've somehow think I have figured out. I feel like a lot of times when people ask artists like me or even songwriters, "Hey, how do you write a song?" We kind of go back and try to deconstruct it to sound smart. But the truth is at least for me, I go into a room and I just, you know, I'm just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I want to say. And in the process of building that, whether it's, you know, again, whether it's just thinking about writing, you know, from the beginning, just writing the lyrics and things like that, I'm instantly feeling like, okay, when I'm hearing my co-writer sing this back to me, am I feeling what I'm trying to convey? You know, because that's for me is why I always co-write, because it's like, hey, here's some words. And when the other guy or girl sings it to me, it's like, yep, I'm feeling that's making me feel what I'm trying to say. Perfect. And that's ultimately what I focus on. I focus on more of what music feels like than what it sounds like. And then I also just think to myself, if I'm writing for me, I have to envision myself standing on a stage singing this song. And if I can't envision that, you know, then it's probably good to scrap it and move on, you know. And I mean, I think just ultimately for me, if you really listen to all my music, ultimately a lot of it just reflects, it could reflect a season, it could reflect years, it could reflect 10 minutes of my journey of just like, hey, this is what I was going through around the time we wrote that.
So you actually start with the guitar as a bass, like the bass line, not bass line, but you know, as your structure.
Most
sometimes.
For me, again, I'm not much of a musician. I mean, I could play guitar. I could fake it, but 90% of the time, like I said, I've told you guys this before when I've been on, I always co-write. I don't write songs myself. I just find that it's a lot of saved time if I write things down for myself to take into writes, it's nice to kind of have them filtered, have them even improved upon. And it's just a better, just been a better process for me. Also, most of the people that I write with can play instruments better than I can breathe. So it's great to go, hey, here's an idea, and they're able to sort of make it real. You know, and then what happens from there is, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, very different. But yeah, I feel like the old adage that if a song isn't good on just an acoustic guitar, it's not a good song.
So we talked about contrasts a little bit, but what would you say are some of the tools that you would ascertain when you're trying to create contrast in a song dynamics? Well,
I mean, you know, I think that's a again, I think that's to me, and again, others might disagree, but that's a song specific thing. I feel like whatever serves the song best. You know, I became a big fan of One Republic over the last year or so, and really studying what they do. You know, and so for argument's sake, my last single, Making Moves, it changes dynamics a lot throughout the song, but that's also because it's a pop tune. That wouldn't work well in a, maybe a folk tune or a country song, or maybe even a rock song per se. But I mean, it's a journey, just like most, I mean, if you listen to any One Republic tune, it's like almost every section of that song is just another chapter that sometimes it keeps building and building. Other times it builds and comes down, builds again, comes down, fakes like it's going to build, but doesn't. And that's sort of been, like for a song like Making Moves, the variable dynamics keep it interesting. And to me, it's like it keeps the listener wanting more. But I would say moving forward, one thing I learned with the song Making Moves is we kept it short at, I think, around 2.5 minutes, with the intention of, we want you, because streaming's the thing, we want you to hit repeat. We want you to listen to it again. And I think that, that's sort of been, the new focus now with streaming is we want them to hit repeat. We want them to play it again. And that's, that's the thing. I think, the old school 4-minute songs don't do it anymore. I think 2.5 to 3 minute songs, or even less now, I think that's the magic ingredient, because again, streaming is everything. And if people skip your song at any point, even with 30 seconds left, these streaming platforms algorithms go up, people aren't interested, move on, and now you're buried. So it's a very interesting concept. And unfortunately, the business side of this thing has probably, I'd say, gotten in the way a little bit of, making a really well told story in a song because of it.
Okay,
but
great.
That's another topic for conversation.
Yeah, it is a great topic for sure. But let's get back to talking about dynamics and creating those, not dynamics, but the contrasts in a song. We're trying to unpack that tonight, and helping other people to create a contrast, or a place of that. Maybe it's a notation, maybe it's a instrumentation, maybe it's a vocalization, maybe it's sound layering, or as was said, Joel said, take things out. So you'll have create these different dynamics.
Right.
So,
well, I would argue that that's less of a songwriting thing and more of a production end of things than at least that's just how I would see that. Because for the most part, I mean, every song I've ever written sounds nothing like when we wrote it. Not even a little bit. I mean, it's just like, because in the production end of it is where a lot of that is getting added and taken away, rather than in the right. I would say,
right.
Again, and that's where I think a lot of people get caught up. I think a lot of songwriters, especially new songwriters, and I remember this, is thinking too much about what's this song going to sound like, what's the drums going to be like, what's this going to be like, and the song, you kind of lose sight of the lyrics, the melody side of, and just how what you're trying to say feels. So I would say, just again, as far as all that kind of stuff, that kind of happens, at least for me, more in the production side of it. I mean, we have a song right now that I'm in the process of, we're producing, where, we wrote it and would love what we wrote, but, in the track building end of it, it's like, hey, you know what, there's no reason to repeat, the end of a line, it says, because you're making me who I am meant to be. And it's like, the way we wrote it is like, we're like, who I am meant to be. And we're like, well, why are we repeating that phrase 3 times? Like, I know we're trying to emphasize it, but why don't we just change the melody, instead of it being like, who I am meant to be, just have it be like, who I am meant to be, like, just hit those consonants hard, and you can emphasize it in a shorter amount of time. So that's stuff that, again, for me, has always been during the production end of it more than in the writing side of it, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, so you just gave a kind of an example of, well, one thing you've done is you've taken a phrase and you've repeated it to bring emphasis. Okay.
Right.
So that's one thing. Now, and we've also talked about dynamics. So I want to bring Joel back in here too. So okay. So Joel, when you talked about dynamics, were you talking instrumentally, for example?
I was talking about, yeah, like all of the above. And first of all, nice to meet you, Tom. It's always a funny way to meet somebody like this. I think that Tom brings up a really good point, is if we depend on the end product and we depend on production too much, we're skipping a step of songwriting, right? Because what does this song sound like, the unplugged version? What does the acoustic version sound like? So if we're thinking too much about the final product in terms of either a live performance with a full band and using volume and dynamics, or we're thinking about what the final product of a song sounds like, we're actually jumping a step. And so what we're trying to kind of zone in on is like, how do we create contrast in the song itself rather than the way it's presented, whether it's the live version or a full production. So one of the things that I would do to create contrast in a song so that it's interesting in the acoustic version, or me just sitting at a piano, or it's an effect that can be augmented in a produced version, in a track version, a recorded version of the song. One of the things I'm very conscious of doing is changing phrasing, so that if I'm using a style of phrasing, vocal phrasing, and I take for granted that I'm using these expressions that I assume that everybody knows what I'm talking about. So if I kind of dumb things down a little bit, everybody else will have to kind of bear with me. But all phrasing is the diction, right? The frequency of syllables and how you place syllables in the phrasing, your vocals, right? So I might phrase a verse differently where I'm using longer notes and then leaving more space before I come back in again. And then maybe to create some excitement and to kind of create some momentum as the song moves along, as we get to a new fresh section of the song before, say, we get to the chorus and we have this pre-chorus, or we have these kind of middle 4 or 8 bars. I might change how I'm singing the lyrics now, and I might double down and sing like this, and now sing it again like this. And so that there's something to the listener's ear that feels very obvious. Oh, the singer is kind of changing the way he or she is singing here and creating some momentum by adding more rhythm, by leaving less space. And so that now when I get to the chorus, I can either proceed with that phrasing style, or I can revert to my other phrasing style. And I feel like, for me, one of the main ways that I communicate feeling into text is by thinking about, well, does this feeling feel open? Does it feel pensive? Does it feel reflective? Then if so, then I might hold my notes longer. I might use words that have longer vowels. I might leave space between my thoughts in the verse. Or if I have drama, or I have anxiety, or I have tension, I'm trying to create tension in the song, well, then I would sing more nervously. I would add more lyrics. I would add another rhyme. I would try to appeal to the listener's attention. So one of the things that I try to do, and again, a track and the production can help this, adding more ingredients, adding extra, things in the drum programming to kind of create this attention on this additional phrasing, punctuation, rhythm. But I find that those little bits of dynamic or a contrast work even if you're playing the song just with one instrument, that the listener is sort of re-engaged because there's this new feeling that was reintroduced. And maybe one of the problems that I find with songs that kind of leave me cold is that if I kind of take a step back and re-listen to the song, what I've realized is like, oh, from start to finish, the singer is sort of phrasing everything the same way. And either extreme gets boring. If you're just hearing this, or you're just hearing these drawn out phrases all the time. What I try to do in a song is just change it up a little bit so that the listener is aware of the fact that the phrasing style has changed a little bit.
So can the phrasing style change? Like, I guess one thing I can think of is, let's think of verses and choruses. Sometimes a verse may, like in terms of phrasing, the wording, the phrasing could be really spaced out, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'm saying this wrong, but you know what I mean? Like there could be phrasing that's very spacious. And then when it gets to the chorus, it kind of speeds up with a lot of words, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe there's a lot of words in the verse, and then when it gets to the chorus, it's a simple, 2-word, 3-word chorus that's repeated or something like that. And Tom, I think of the song that keeps coming back into my head, Tom, is your Letting Go song. I have there's your verse, and to be honest with you, I don't remember your verse. What I remember is, I'm letting go that's what I remember is the song, So it's like, it's just I'm letting go. Yeah. 3 words that I'm hearing. And that's how I feel you've created that connection too. And I don't know if that's an example of the difference in phrasing from verse to chorus. And then we can go ahead and talk hooks. Now, hooks are a whole different thing too, in terms of building, I guess, a contrast there too. And I know we could probably do a whole conversation on just how to build a hook, right? But yeah, like I think of that kind of idea between verse and chorus, and hooks. And I know that when in past conversations, when we talked about, particularly with choruses and hooks, it's what's memorable. And even with using phrasing, and sometimes, as you say, Joel, the difference in the vowels, some longer vowels and in our phrasing, or repeating stuff like what you said, Tom, like just taking something and repeating. But then, do we need to repeat? Can we just emphasize, put some, what's the word I'm looking for? Pronunciation, like really emphasizing certain consonants and so forth. So instrumentally, like I guess instrumentally, if we wanted to support that, you talked about, Joel, you talked about sometimes spacing, or you used a different phrase. It wasn't spacing, but I think it was a phrase where it seems like the music is less and then it builds. And can you kind of help me with that?
Well, that to be more of an arrangement choice, right? Is how many instruments do we need in a moment to provide harmonic and chordal help to a song, and how do we create a feeling like something has grown or increased? And the trick, like I said before, about negative space, is about where are there moments in the song or in the arrangement when there are less things happening, so that when everything does all come in, you kind of perceive that there is this increase in instrumentation, in energy, in support, in texture. And the only way to do that is to pull things out. And there's no general rule. There's no rule that says, there's more for the chorus, less for the verse, start a song this way. Even in terms of my previous note about phrasing, I mean, that's just one idea of how to create contrast.
I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to whatever serves the song. I mean, a good example is like, I think Justin Bieber has a song called Love Yourself. And it is probably one of his most stripped down instrumental tracks that he's ever put out. And it doesn't have a ton of dynamic build. It just sort of stays in one space because it serves the song really well. And that's sort of the thing sometimes, is sometimes, more is good and other times less is more. And I think that Joel would agree that, like, most of the time it's going to be what serves the song, and it's always going to be different. And I mean, again, that's where it boils back to what I talked about earlier, how it's just got whatever feels right. I mean, the songs are designed to make you, I think there's a meme where it's basically where songs can put words to your feelings. Or put like even put like a tempo to your heartbeat, or so. It's all these memes, I think, but it's true. It's like, I think whatever serves the song and makes that song feel like the song is trying to make you feel, then that's the way to go. And then of course there's again, like Joel talked about, is getting those elements to keep it interesting, because, well, you want to keep people interested and want to keep them listening, because why not?
I think one of the reasons why contrast is so important is because nobody owes you a listen. I mean, and I'm not trying to be cruel, but the fact of the matter is that nobody owes your song a listen. And, unless a song is kind of compelling, most people kind of check out after about a minute, whether you're performing it for them live or you're playing, you're recording. A successful song in any forum keeps your attention. And I think that a lot of times we get very precious about the art we create because we're so invested in the story. We're so invested in the lyrics. And we think, okay, everybody that hears this song is going to give it their undivided attention too. But I think a certain amount of craftsmanship, just being a little bit conscious of craftsmanship to help get your message across, is important, because we've got to remember that nobody really owes us anything. A great song stands on its own, right? Nobody owes us a listen. So we it's up to us as songwriters to kind of compel a listener to keep listening.
I'm going to be honest though, musically, like in the whole world, music right now, 2021, and even myself as an artist, it's a challenge because again, it's become a very strange world we live in, where it does sometimes doesn't make sense why a song is a hit or why people like it, but I almost feel like, and I don't want to call them gone just yet, but I feel like we're heading toward a day where gone are the days where that epic instrumental intro makes you go, that song. And there's a lot of songs, classic songs, that try playing that on an acoustic guitar. It's not going to hit. I mean, one example I think of is Crazy Train, right? Ozzy Osbourne. Everyone knows that. I mean, unless you got a really good acoustic player who could play that. But without that, take that away. I don't think they wrote that in the writing room. And if that was just a strummy, song, millions of people, like it might be catchy, but man, it's like that guitar brings you in. Another example is Carry On My Wayward Son, man. They get you in with that harmony. And then the drums, dun, dun, dun. It's just like, yes. Dun, 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 and it's like, I miss those days. I miss songs like that because now that's just not really, I don't know. I just don't know if that's a thing anymore. Right away, it's like chorusing as soon as possible. Let's get to this hook. Let's get to this really watered down thing. And, I miss those long instrumental songs that just, there's no words. You're just feeling whatever it is they're trying to make you feel,
It's a good point.
Yeah. I just want to take a second to thank everybody who's watching right now. The GMIHub online. I appreciate it so much. And if you do like what you're seeing, as we're listening to Tom and Joel, as we're talking about contrast, creating that in your songs, maybe you could like the video if you haven't done that already, or hit the notification bell so you'll know the next time we get a video uploaded. It'd be awesome. And also, just want to let you know, we have a website, GMIHub.ca. And when you go on there, you'll see we've got a whole bunch of things that are coming your way. We have a monthly newsletter you can sign up for. We've got a new compilation, Family Christmas Volume 2, which is coming out very soon, and exciting stuff like that. We just love you to go on the website and let us know you're there. Put your email in there and we will send you a hub happening every month. That's right. So you can get that absolutely free. That'd be awesome.
And I am excited right now because the other thing that we offer is a backstage pass. And what that simply means is after the live broadcasts on Mondays, we're giving you an opportunity to sign up. You have to sign up on our website, but we're giving you an opportunity to come into the meeting that we're in and meet the panelists, ask your questions directly. So I am excited because I already know there are people waiting in the waiting room right now wanting to talk to our panelists today. So this is so exciting. We're going to have a great time, but this only happens after, you only get to come in after the live webcast. So those of you who are waiting, keep waiting. We'll let you in a little bit, but we just want to let you know that we haven't forgotten you. And others that are watching and want to get a backstage pass, you will have to sign up at GMIHub.ca to get on our mailing list and make sure that so you can get your backstage pass to some of these awesome conversations. Now, speaking of conversations, back to this conversation about building contrast.
We were talking about vocals and lyrics and the arrangement. And so let's just keep talking. Let's keep going. That's awesome.
Okay, what about melody? Is there a way of building contrast in melody?
That's too scientific for me.
Then that's right up my alley.
Yeah.
One of the things that I try to do when I'm writing a song is, and like, again, I think it's really important that we should really articulate over and over again that this isn't a science. These aren't rules, that we shouldn't be, busting out our notepads and our kind of checklist when we're writing songs. This is just, I think that all we're trying to do is provide a bunch of different tools for people's toolkits, and certain tools work for some songs and certain don't. So I wouldn't say what I'm about to say isn't a general rule, but I find it's a trick that I use often in my own songwriting, that I will, especially being a writer that can also sing. And I realize that there are some, which reminds me of an anecdote I'll talk about later. We might even save it for our after show, but I'll say my highest notes as a vocalist for the chorus, because higher notes where a singer has to push harder, where a singer has to sort of achieve notes, creates more drama. There's a sense of just, like I say, achievement in a melody. You reach so I wouldn't save my kind of big triumphant notes for a verse. Usually I would save it for a chorus, because I also feel like people that may want to sing along with your song look forward to challenging themselves as singers too. And so, like, let's get to the point of the song where the melody, if you were to look on a guitar or you were looking at a piano, we're going up the register. Save those notes for the moment where we want to kind of express maybe the penultimate moment of the story. We want to, maybe it's the biggest hook of the song, or to kind of signify to the listener that we've reached the chorus. I think saving the kind of moments of the melody that are higher just produces that result in the listener. I don't, like I say, it's not a general rule, but I do find myself not underselling a chorus and singing my lower register and then pushing for it in my verse. I very rarely do that. I most often save the highest points of my melody for a chorus, or like a singular post kind of chorus hook, so that I have somewhere to go when I want to come back to telling the story of a verse. And like I say, not a general rule, but I do find that is a trick that I use a lot in my melody composition, is like, where are the points where as a singer I'm pushing myself, and where do I want to save those moments for in the song?
I would say that in that regard, if you create those tension moments with your vocals, people might be drawn into the energy, and it might be a little bit different feeling for them as a listener.
Tom, how about you? What are some things that you do? Because I think you do something like what Joel says. Like, again, I have Letting Go in my head. I don't know why I have that song in my head, but but I think in your choruses, it seems like you do something similar. Your choruses have a stronger, or maybe the higher notes are there. Is that, am I reading?
Well,
that?
yeah, I mean, and again, I if I'm being honest, like I didn't like cognitively write this song being like, all right, let's do this, like this is the formula, this is the magic potion. Like, that's not what we did. But ultimately what makes that song work is, and especially the way I sing that song, the verses are all tension. Pre-chorus is like, I'm just so tired of the way things have been. I've been knocked down. It's like, so and it's interesting because while on one half it feels like it almost vocally feels like we're releasing there, but we're actually building even more. And then I'm letting go, whoa, that's where your release comes. So it's all just tension and release, and I mean, ultimately that's again, it keeps it interesting. It makes it feel good to sing. And I think that's the interesting thing so the genre obviously that I'm in is Christian music, is, there's sort of a filter of, is it singable? Is it listenable? Is it fun to sing? Is it a song you can't wait to sing along to? Like, that stuff matters. And it's a little different in the Christian genre than it is, I'd say, in the pop world, because I don't think they're as worried about singing it as they are in Christian music. And I mean, and the reasons for that are, that's a whole nother topic. But I do feel like that's something that is tough, because like I love groups like, again, like One Republic, or even you got like who is that? Imagine Dragons, where they got their songs, where their verses are like, first things first, dun, da, 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 and then it just all of a sudden, but they never did ever live, they've been flowing inhibited, limited till they broke up, it's like, whoa. And then it's, like rain down like hey, and like, whoa, that's dynamic, that's cool. But that, I don't know that I would fly in Christian music necessarily. Only because it's so like, it's just really challenging. People have tried it and it just doesn't work, but but ultimately that's sort of just what, like I said, I focus on, how does this feel? How's this feel for me as the artist? How's it feel when, my producer sings it back at me, or my co-writer is like, hey, run through that part again. And it's like, ooh, yeah, that feels good. Let's do it. If it doesn't, if it falls flat, it's just not going to work. And I've had songs that I'm like, wow, lyrically, this is amazing, but it's just, man, we haven't crafted this in a way that's quite grabbing it, or I'm already bored. And I hate that, because you're like, this is so well done. It's so clever. And the rhymes are great. And no one ever uses that word to describe that. That's so cool. But it just loses something. And, those are the songs where maybe, another day, another song comes along and you get inspired. And now you take that and, you just didn't think of it that day, But I mean, ultimately, like I said, that's what we do is I've always focused on how a song feels throughout, and just really trying to find, though, I guess, those moments of, where's your tension, where's your release, and, what's really gonna connect with somebody. Because I mean, like you keep bringing up, I'm letting go. Like the point of that song was just to make it like, hey, trusting God doesn't, it might be, some people have, it may be scary, but we could celebrate it, and we could celebrate it loudly, and just, I'm letting go. Let's shout that, from the highest of mountains. And I think for some, it's cathartic to sing. It's cathartic for me to sing. Especially if you ever toured with me, some things just don't go your way, and you're just like, I'm letting go.
Yeah.
I think this song is a great example, because when you described kind of the feelings that you were trying to portray throughout the journey of the song, the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus, this kind of hook of letting go, you describe writing about feeling tense, being anxious, being unsure. And so now we're kind of touching on a new sort of lyrical contrast. So it's like, what are the sections of the songs trying to achieve lyrically? So in terms of giving lyrics to words, to feelings, if your song is kind of expressing the same feeling from each section of the arrangement, then I don't know that you're telling a good story. Whereas if I'm looking for, as a listener, if I'm looking forward to this moment to release, this cathartic moment in the chorus, well, that's going to feel 10 times better to me as the listener, or even if I'm singing along with your song, if we've created some sort of tension in the verse. So I've been able to sort of experience, I'm connecting to the emotion of these lyrics, talking about feeling alone, about feeling unsure. I've experienced those emotions in the verse, and then 30 seconds later, I've experienced the emotion of catharsis, of release, of surrender by the time we get to the chorus. Well, if the whole song is about that, if the verse is all sunshine as well, there's no release. I haven't been released from any kind of tension. So I think that this is something that we do quite intuitively as writers, like whether we're aware of the minutia of the craft, we're trying to kind of show a dark side and a light side, because that light side in the chorus feels that much more of a release if we've described how it feels in our verse or another section of our arrangement, or maybe a bridge, how that opposite feels. So as a listener in a 2.5 minute song, I've gone back and forth from yin to yang. I've been empathized with the singer of the song, or the writer of the song has empathized with me in my dark moments, and has given me a chance to kind of be released, or to feel uplifted, or to surrender. And I just feel like a mediocre song is only kind of telling one story, one emotional story. And so maybe one of the quickest tricks we can use as writers to introduce contrast in our song is to make sure there are two kind of light and dark that in that storytelling, you know what I mean? And so maybe that when we're kind of evaluating our own works and we're listening back to our own songs, that may be an area where we can be constructively critical of what we've just created. It's like, well, right. Have I given somebody a mountain to climb? Have I given somebody some emotional catharsis? Because if it's all sunshine and roses, it's all puppy dogs and smiling faces, we haven't really kind of come from anywhere. in the
Yeah.
song, right?
Authors also struggle with the same things when writing a book. They have to create the conflict and the resolution. The whole idea. It makes sense that you're doing the same building process when you're putting a song forth. Maybe that's overthinking it a bit, but the result may be ending up to be that.
As
I
you,
mean, just to for clarity, I mean, Joel, are you talking about like lyrically, like a song should talk about good things and bad things? I'm just, that's kind of how it sounded to me, and I just want to clarify before I
Lyrically,
Okay.
and this is
All
just
right.
one tool. I wouldn't say every song needs,
Okay, yeah.
but it's a good way to kind of create some sort of contrast in a song where it's like, I've told some sad stories and I've told some happy stories within that one
Yeah,
song.
I would go and say that that's probably, I would say for the new songwriter, it's probably a great way to get started. But then I think that as you get seasoned, I think it's important because there's plenty of songs that, you know, need to stay in whatever it is you're talking about. And because not everything is contrast, you know, and I mean, again, there's a lot of examples I could use of some really, really, really good songs that were continuously about the same thing. Just maybe the contrast came in the bridge, but it was never really a lyrical contrast. It still was on topic. And like for me, growing up, and now again, growing up, I didn't listen to Christian music. I listened to secular music. And I'd say in the late 90s, one of the top songs, actually it was probably like 99, maybe 2000. One of the top songs, and it stayed there for a long time, was a song called "In the End" by Linkin Park. And that song from start to finish is about one thing. And it's just basically about just, it's kind of life, as if, you know, if you're kind of angsty and in your early 20s, you kind of have this revolution against your parents. You don't know me, I'm growing up, you wouldn't recognize me anymore. And, it's just sort of about that from start to finish. And it just connected with everybody. I mean, from this to this day, I can guarantee you this: if I got on a stage at a festival and we played that song, just the intro alone, everyone's going to be like, yes, that song. And there's not much contrast. Now, to your point, you did say not every song, but I wouldn't necessarily lean on it as a hard rule because that's been a struggle in a lot of Christian rights, is everyone who wants to be like, well, let's sing about the struggle and then let's say what God says because it's the answer. And a lot of times it's like, man, do you know how that makes me when I go through stuff and my friends be like, well, Isaiah 43. Like, oh, come on, man. Could you just sit with me in this mess for a minute, please? I know that's true, but come on. I need to know that you're with me on this before you start throwing that out. And I feel like.
Yeah, no, I get you. There's also probably another way to handle that contrast is not just lyrically, but vocally, where you're able to take the softer
100%.
and the hard and make those contrasts within the actual melody or the way the vocalization is actually presented. And of course, you got your layering with your rhythm of your harmonies and the dynamics you can bring into all those, allowing for those moments to be captured by not just the words themselves, but the actual vocalization.
Oh, 100%. And again, there's so much comes into play. I mean, who you're writing for. You're writing for you're writing for another artist, you're writing for your church. Are you writing something for sync? There's so many different formulas and so many different things that work in different places. So
it's funny you're bringing it up.
Oh, Dale just muted himself.
Yes, he did.
That was really smart of me, wasn't it? You're talking about musical arrangement or vocalization or arrangement here potentially, and how that would tie in with your instrumentation arrangement. I wanted to unpack this a little bit about the lyrics and how that is conveyed through the musicality. Like whenever a word would resonate with this type of music, when something is serious, the music is serious. Whenever something is calming, the music is calming. When you're singing something in a high pitch, the music is stronger. Those kind of things. Those are techniques that can be utilized as well.
And sometimes it's the opposite. It's singing serious when the music's not, and vice versa.
That's a great. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, music's wild, man. You could do You can do anything with it. It just has to, there's certain mathematical things that have to happen. It's got to be on beat. It's got to be in the right key. There's things, but man, it's just, there's no right or wrong. There's just what has proven to work and what was proven to never work for me, at least but there's ultimately, music is just a beautiful, beautiful thing because I get myself in trouble when I've gone to like songwriting seminars, and like one of the speakers will talk about like, as a rule, never do this. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I'm on my laptop finding a list of songs that do that people won Grammys for and stuff. So I'm like, well, I love that you said that, but what about this song, this song, this song, this song? And they kind of get mad at me.
There's no real rule. There's no real rules to do. Yeah, I agree. But there's a question, I guess maybe that, our time's running up, but I wanted to talk about creating a hook. And then the reason why I'm bringing that up, because different ways of writing vocal hooks, musical hooks, chorus hooks, or bridge. So is there any tools that you could, or any suggestions, or glean some really interesting knowledge you have on how to create a good hook?
Well, you probably won't like my answer because it's the same thing I've been saying is, how's it feel? Is it fun to sing? And sometimes the hook isn't necessarily the chorus. Like, for instance, like I'll give you an example, Toby Mac's song. I think it's called When Love Broke Through. I don't know all the lyrics, but like he says, like, all I did to undo me. Yep. Like that's a hook, man. Yep. That's hooky as heck. And it's like, whoa, they got you with no words. They got you with and then behind that, I call it like a double hook. When love, and it's the stompy, da 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 da. And when you sing along to it, it feels good. You're like, yo, this is fun. And you can't wait for it to come along again because you're like, I want to sing that, when love. So it's like, that to me is it fun to sing? Is it fun to listen to? When you're playing through the song, can you like, I can't wait till we get to that because that's so fun. I think that's for me the litmus test in a write is I can't wait to get there. And the hard part, I've run into this where like I'll love a verse so much that I can't wait for that. Then if I'm more excited about a verse coming than the chorus or the hooky part, then a hook needs to be better. But that's ultimately for me, that's the litmus test. How's it feel? Because that's music, man. We got to focus more on how it feels and how it sounds, or than how it reads on a piece of paper. How's it feel? And if it feels good, you got some. If you're like, I'm letting go, I wasn't going to cut that song, but I got caught up singing that song, walking around my house for like 6 months. Just, all right, time to record this song because I couldn't get it out of my head. So that's just that,
And it got into my head instead. Well, we've got a question.
Joel wanted to ask his feedback on the hook.
Oh, Joel. Yes. Speak, Joel.
A hook for me. So Tom, you might know this guy. He's a writer in Nashville named Juan Otero. And Juan taught me something in a writing session. I would say that half of my writing sessions are collaborative and half of them are solo. So sometimes I write songs on my own. Sometimes I write them with people. And I know we only have a short amount of time, but Juan taught me something about a hook. So Juan is a very interesting songwriter because he can't play a musical instrument. He's not a singer. He doesn't know a B from a C flat. I mean, he doesn't know anything about music. He's a dancer. And he used to be a dancer for DC Talk, but he's had a number of hits. And one of the reasons he's so successful is because being a dancer, he thinks of everything in terms of rhythm. So when we're trying to come up with hooks, he can't sit still. He physically would have to get up off the seat and walk around. And there's something about walking around to the beat of the song that would give him an idea. What feels good? He would get an idea here. There's something would build in him that would come very spontaneously. Like he wouldn't edit it. We wouldn't think too much about it. And even though he couldn't articulate what the lyrics were, what the chord changes are, what's the melody, he knew what the rhythm was. And so since working with Juan, who, like I say, is very limited as a songwriter and yet extremely successful, I learned how to get up off my chair sometimes and walk around. So when I'm coming up with a hook, it's like there's something kinetic about a hook that is maybe less cerebral. There's something, it could be because it's repetitive. It could be because it's easy to sing along with. It could be because it's not trying to carry too much information in the lyrics. It's one thing. It could be because it's the most exciting part of the melody. There are a number of things that make a hook work. But if there's one thing that a hook should do, it should, like Tom say, make you look forward to it. It's a payoff. So maybe if I don't remember, what is this, the verse of the song? Or maybe if somebody played the song for you and you'd only heard it a few times, you wouldn't know what the song was until, oh yeah, that hook. I know what this song is. So sometimes what I need to do to create a hook is literally get up and walk around. And
I
there's
wish
something
I had
about
heard this.
moving,
I wish
even
I'd
if
heard
it's a
this
slow tempo, that gives
before.
me an idea of what that energy means.
Yeah, I wish someone had told me that because that is a fabulous idea. I love that, Joel. That's amazing. The physicality of just getting up and taking it to a whole new level. Man, I'm gonna do that. That's so cool.
That is
Yeah,
so
and I learned it from a dancer who was a genius at writing hooks and couldn't write melody. He would just say it.
Of course, yeah.
And his collaborators would help him put a melody to it. But there was just something about his conviction and his inspiration that crazy guy, kooky guy, but he's got the hits to prove it and has a way of communicating to people because he found this kinetic way of approaching hook writing. Once again, just one idea, one more tool for your
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. So lessons learned so far, how it feels, and walk around and make sure you feel what's going on so you can tell. And if you don't have a live audience, get that feedback. Building contrast in a song. We talked mostly about lyrically and melody, and dynamic. There's so many more things, and I think we will probably have to have another session to talk more about this, but we have people that have been patiently waiting to connect with Joel and Tom. So for the live audience, I want to say thank you so much for being here. And I hope you learned a lot. Of course, this episode is going to be on YouTube, so you can go back and you can listen to this over and over and over again. And hey, I hope you put some stuff in the chat. If you want this, if you want Joel and Tom to come back, talk about this more, then write it in the chat. We'd be happy to try and arrange something with them to see if they'll come back to talk about this. I also want to just remind you again to go to our website, gmihub.ca, where you will learn about the different events that are coming up, and about I've lost my voice, to learn about our Christmas compilation that's coming up. Look out for that. It's actually going to be released October 30th. And there are artists on there from across Canada that are going to be on here. And it's all original Christmas music you don't want to miss out on. So if you want to get your Christmas shopping done early, October 30th is the day to start getting ready to pick up your copy of the GMIHub Family Christmas Volume 2. As well. Again, sign up for at GMIHub, get on our mailing list where you learn about all the different things that GMIHub is working on behind the scenes. We celebrate your accomplishments. We want to celebrate the things that you're doing as well as songwriters and singers. And if you get performance times, we want to celebrate with you. And also, Backstage Pass. It's the latest thing that we're doing right now. And basically, as we get artists or panelists that come in, we want to give you an opportunity to connect with the panelists after the live webcast. So for this one, we have some people waiting. But if you want to get in on some future ones, get on our mailing list and we'll certainly let you in. Now, I'll tell you this, in November, we have Rick Barker that's going to be here online. You're going to want that Backstage Pass. Rick Barker was an artist manager for Taylor Swift. and he has some amazing, amazing tips for marketing as indie artists, as gospel artists. So we would love you to tune into that. But without further ado, I want to say thank you, Joel. Thank you, Tom, for being here for this live webcast. Stay, because there are people that are in the waiting room right now wanting to talk to you guys. And for all of you that are watching online, thank you so much for being here. Be with us next week as we are going to be talking all about the bass part 2. We have Rick Kua with us. We have Tim Ball, and we have I want to say Gord Lemon, but I don't think it's Gord. But we have 3 amazing bassists that are coming on board. You are not going to want to miss them. Oh, no, it's Chris Byrne. That's who it is. Chris Byrne is going to be with us. Yes. So they are coming back. If you're going to want to tune into that, all about the bass part 2, that's next week. So until then, remember, GMIHub encourages unity, community, mentorship, and talent growth. Be with us